Welcome to Savannah's Next Generation Leadership Podcast. The new pace of transformation in business, technology and society creates the need for new skills, new approaches and new ways of thinking. We talk to influential leaders from a diverse set of backgrounds to explore what it takes to build boards and executive teams fit for the future. In each episode, we talk to executives, investors and experts at the forefront of their respective fields to uncover the insights, challenges and ideas defining the next generation of leadership.
So welcome to the Next Generation podcast with Savannah Group. It's a pleasure to welcome Anne-Cécile with me today. She's done a remarkable career and been a real catalyst for transformation across major sectors, leading projects like the Renault Captur, driving innovation in hydrogen and bio-inspired engines. Has the ability to really kind of bridge the deep technical expertise with sharp business acumen. I'm going to have a good conversation around a few areas. So absolute pleasure to have you today.
Thanks, Simon. It's a pleasure too, and I'm glad we could connect. I'm especially drawn to your focus on inspiring the next generation through real leadership stories. With over 20 years in industry and executive roles, I now advise on clean tech and strategic development, focusing on building structures that connect technology, impact, and long-term value, particularly where innovation intersect with sovereignty and ecological transition.
I think it's such a key area that's coming to more and more prominence, by the month really at the moment. I think with yourself, you've always had that, you describe yourself as decoder of complexity and really aligning technology to the strategy, but also having that sustainable impact. How does this philosophy really shape your approach to leadership, especially when managing large multicultural teams, across multiple continents?
For me, Simon, leadership is collaborative by design. At Ampere, I oversaw a 50 million research program across 3 continents. And from the start, we made sure every team, whether in Paris, India, or elsewhere, felt like there was just across the hallway. We shared not only the goals, but also the values and constraints of the program. Everyone had to understand what they were building and why it mattered. Back at Renault, the Captur program marked a turning point. It was the first time the team was truly mixed. And that shift revealed the full richness of inclusive leadership. Decision making became sharper, creativity more fluid, and blind spots fewer. It wasn't a theory, it was a live transformation. And when each person sees the stone they are adding to the structure and knows it wouldn't stand the same without them, you create deep engagement and trust. The topics we tackled were complex: battery chemistry, AI, hydrogen, and so on. But complexity doesn't mean confusion. I believe in simplifying problems to their elemental form. That's where collective intelligence becomes powerful.
I mean, you've touched on the time at Ampere where you filed 68 patents in a single year, which is obviously a large amount. But then when that's across a range from battery chemistry to AI, so you've touched on it, but how do you really create an environment where these diverse areas and teams feel really empowered to innovate, but still manage to do all this within a 50 million budget as well?
Creating an environment conducive to innovation requires a delicate balance between creative freedom and operational rigor. At Ampere, we nurture this dynamic by combining internal expertise with external insights, particularly from academia and startups, to broaden our perspectives and avoid blind spots. We made sure each team member felt not only responsible for their area, but also encouraged to explore new frontiers. To foster these, we implemented brainstorming sessions, internal tech challenge, and cross-disciplinary collaboration within our R&D units. At the same time, managing a 50 million budget means defining clear priorities while remaining agile, because today agile is the big world. We conducted both qualitative and quantitative studies to ensure our innovations met real consumer needs while anticipating future regulatory shifts. For example, AI become a central enabler in structuring our processes, but it also allowed us to integrate sustainability into the heart of our work. Eco-design and recyclability were not seen as constraints, but
Yeah.
as driving forces behind our strategy.
Do you think, obviously, as being a very successful female leader across, automotive, deep tech sectors, where you have risen to those executive levels, do you think having an inclusive board or senior leadership, do women bring a different angle and approach where they can help with this kind of innovation? And I guess, on the side of I guess what can companies do more to help elevate women, into these more senior leadership positions as well?
That's a very difficult question. And I recently attended a roundtable on gender diversity in recruitment. And what struck me is how many cultural barriers still remain. We won't solve this unless we show clearly that women bring value.
Mm.
Um, I like a tips from Christine Lagarde. Christine Lagarde once said, if Lehman Brothers had been Lehman Sisters, we might not have had the 2008 crisis.
Yeah.
Women bring systemic thinking, emotional clarity, and resilience. But we're still asked to prove our legitimacy
Yeah.
more than men. That has to change. And we won't get there by speaking only among the already convinced. We need those who decide, those who shape governance and strategy to engage. Because diversity isn't optional, it's a condition for performance, sovereignty, and competitiveness. Innovation cannot be designed in a vacuum. It must be thought through with multiple voice. Women and men, united by tech, must build a more inclusive, more human, and more sovereign industry. If I had to name one action, make equality measurable, promote women to executive committees, fund women led startups, and set ambitious quotas. Inclusion is not a woman's issue, it's a leadership imperative. It's about building governance that reflects the full spectrum of talent, in fact.
I think, and it's a critical point you touched on where, diversity and inclusion, it's not just a nice to have. It's if you look at all of the research and background, diverse boards are more profitable. Health and safety's improved, innovation's improved. There's study after study showed that diversity has a drastic impact on a business. But then also on the flip, if you've got 10, 15%, say female talent for your business, you're missing out already on such a large portion of the available workforce. And as more people are retiring, there's more competitiveness from different industries. By having that diversity, it's a matter of survival of companies. But like you say, for financial performance and actual R&D and innovation, it's getting it at the forefront where it's so important and critical business to move forward that way, really, and not just a kind of tick box nice to have mentality around it, really.
Yes, really. Mixed team brings diversity, creativity, and a unique approach to problem solving. We simply cannot afford to ignore half of humanity. My advice to young women aspiring to drive change in industry is you don't need anyone's permission to start. Cultivate your voice,
Yeah,
define your own standards, and create a methodology that works for you. No one should ever tell you that you don't belong. You have a place in this world, and we need you to step forward, lead, and reinvent industries for the better. That's what I
ex-
think about that.
exactly. And you look, there's so many strong female-led startups at the moment, and real sort of role models out there. And I think it's just bringing it to forefront where it's not just for the men, not just for the women. It's just it should be a conversation open to all really. And we see it. Across multiple industries, but even across the geopolitical situation at the moment where there are challenges. So it's always important to keep that, conversation going really as well. And, until we get there. Um, Another large challenge at the moment as we sort of shift towards I guess the sort of clean technology change, looking at the critical mineral space at the moment and the challenges around the value chain as well. There's this growth in like Europe and other regions really trying to identify and regulate and manage their own sort of strategic materials at the moment as well. But then this also creates a massive vulnerability within the supply chain at the moment as well for the clean tech transition. To you, what does strategic sovereignty really look like, and how is it really in practice at the moment as well?
One topic I'm deeply concerned is critical materials, which I've written several articles on. When we talk about electric vehicles by 2035, Europe still doesn't control the supply chain for key materials like lithium, nickel, and rare earths. Even if lithium is discovered within France or within UK, it's the same. We remain dependent on China for refining, a process that many European nations are hesitant to bring to their backyard.
Yeah,
China currently dominates the refining of battery material, and we see a similar vulnerability in electric motors, especially with rare earth magnets. While companies like Tiamat in France are working on alternatives like sodium-ion batteries, which are promising, the energy density is still too low to compete
yeah,
with the light lithium ion at scale. So this isn't merely a technical issue, it's a sovereignty issue. True strategic sovereignty means securing not only access to raw materials but also controlling the entire supply chain from extraction to processing and recycling. In practice, this involves creating a European ecosystem that fosters innovation in refining technologies, supporting R&D in alternative materials, and scaling up recycling capabilities to reduce dependence on imports. Leaders must address these blind
yeah.
spots directly and redefine our industrial strategy to ensure the clean tech transition is sustainable and resilient. This is not just about green innovation, it's about securing Europe's future competitiveness.
Well, you see at the moment from the US, they're significantly investing in global projects within Europe, within Australia, everywhere to really start trying to secure their supply chain. A lot of incentives for companies to actually refine and build within the US. What more can Europe be doing? Because they they talk a lot about it. I say there's a lot of the discussions, but then the actions seem to be lacking a bit sometimes as well, really, especially as a uniform approach towards it.
In fact, in Europe, it exists not a lot of projects, but there are projects. Um, that are working on this refining part, and so I'm not on your line. I think we work on. It's not at the correct level, if I can say that. Uh, but there is some projects are working on this subject, on the refining and so on.
Do you think that the governments within Europe are providing enough support and backing from a financial point of view towards these projects? And from a even just a legislation and also a permitting side of things, because yeah, we see a lot of them being discussed, but actually some of them seem to be going a bit slower at times and so on. But it's
Yeah, in fact, in France, it's political is nightmare at the moment. So it's very difficult to talk about that. But in fact, it's a classical example where industrial ambition meets political confusion. In fact, and for the moment, project can just be can follow a European ecosystem, because there are some ecosystem that fosters innovation in refining technologies, supporting R&D in alternative materials, and scaling up recycling capabilities to reduce dependence on imports. But for the moment, we can't rely on French government, because as you can say, it's a mess for the moment. So budget are not consolidated, and so the most valuable is to make trust in the European level.
yeah. And I think a key part you've touched on a bit about ambition with political confusion. I think when things come financially viable or supported in certain ways, then the progress moves forward. If we're looking at the example of sustainable aviation fuels, the technology has progressed a lot and obviously it's quite viable, but the governance is sometimes fragmented. How can maybe this disconnect between the two sides really hold back some of the progress? And I guess what can we do better to really help this, things move along as well, really?
In fact, sustainable aviation fuels are technically viable. Aircraft engines can already run up on to 50% SAF, but despite the technology's readiness, supply won't meet the demand, and the necessary infrastructure isn't in place. So the core issue here isn't technological, but rather governance and alignment. Off-takers aren't aligned, and subsidies are fragmented across different regions and sectors, creating a patchwork of
Yeah.
regulations and incentives. Um, a very good classics example, not a good example, because um, in May 2025, McPhee, a leading hydrogen electrolysis company, was placed into liquidation in France after failing to secure sufficient industrial and political support. The company had a strong technological foundation and a clear industrial vision, but fragmented subsidies, delayed regulatory frameworks, and a lack of coordinated governance slowed its progress. To bridge this gap, we need more than isolated solutions. We need clear and cohesive governance, a conductor to align all the stakeholders. That means more harmonizing regulations, ensuring consistent subsidies, and creating long-term policies, as China did, that provide market certainty, because without strategic orchestration, even the most promising technologies can fail to scale. We must orchestrate the entire ecosystem, from producers and technology developers to regulators and end users, to avoid the pitfall of building solutions that never scale. By ensuring all parts of the value chain are aligned and supported by coherent policies, we can accelerate the adoption of SAF and unlock its potential.
I think you've touched on the key part there. We see so many strong startup businesses where they've got, great technology, a great idea, it's viable, but either they've not had the right board leadership, the right connections, or they've not managed to scale or the funding. But the technology itself is perfect, or sometimes they've not managed to commercialize it and stayed in laboratory. When you're, say, working as a independent board member and helping to support some of these companies, how do you really help them sort of navigate this complex, political, regulatory landscape, and while trying to scale a vital green technology, which sometimes is new to the market as well? Yeah.
In fact, Opium recently pivoted from hydrogen cars to fuel cells for EV transport, so a big pivot. And in my governance role, my focus is to guide them through the complex political and regulatory landscape while positioning their technology for scalable adoption. A critical part of these involves identifying the markets that will move fastest towards fuel cell adoption, and it was not the car model.
Yeah.
We closely analyze hydrogen availability, integration feasibility, both in terms of packaging and cost. From a regulatory perspective, the transition from car-based applications to heavy transport opens up new opportunities in sectors like maritime and premium leisure boating. These industries, especially in protected zones, offer an early market where there is a clear willingness to invest. Additionally, we are preparing for the heavy-duty mobility sector, such as garbage trucks and high-usage freight vehicles, where battery don't offer the same performance. Navigating this landscape requires us to align the technology with real-world constraints and market readiness, but also to stay ahead of evolving regulations. We work closely with policymakers to advocate for clear, long-term regulatory frameworks that will enable the scaling of hydrogen technology. This involves ensuring that the regulatory environment, infrastructure development, and market incentives all align to create a clear path to adoption. Ultimately, it's about ensuring that the technology not only works, but also fits seamlessly within the political and industrial frameworks that will drive its success.
I think that's it. I mean, with the political side, it's hard when, maybe there's elections, a new government comes in and, with the focus may shift, but having this long-term agreement, but also that support where that things then become financially viable, and whether it's incentives and things like that, which can help really, shift the companies. Looking back, there's been, for the last 4 5 years plus, there's been a major shift in technology and a focus on green technology. But looking forward, we are seeing, advancements in batteries and hydrogen and AI. And obviously, the more you do with AI, the more you need critical minerals to actually help power these things and build them. So they're all intertwined. But looking forward, say by 2030, what kind of innovations or areas are you probably most excited about? And probably, have the biggest opportunity for impact, but similarly, the challenges getting there as well, really.
2030, 2035.
Yeah,
But
we'll
I
give you
think
2040.
quantum computing is undoubtedly the most exciting frontier. Quantum computing could transform drug discovery, climate modeling, and cybersecurity, simulating molecules at scales, optimizing planetary logistics, securing data against future threats. But quantum isn't just another tool, it's a new paradigm.
Mm,
Think of Alice and Bob, entangled across space, exchanging qubits that are both 0 and 1 until observed. It's not just strange physics, it's a new grammar for computing.
yeah.
The real challenge is integration. We need to rethink governance, ethics, and education to bridge classical systems with quantum ones. That means training experts who can think in quantum terms, adapting regulatory frameworks, and reimagining industries from the ground up. The technology is thrilling, but the transition will demand systemic intelligence.
I think it's key. I mean, we've seen an increase even on the AI side, like CAIOs on boards, and it's that bit where this technology is progressing, but it's actually what's the framework regulation around it, but also how do you really use it? It's sometimes you may have all this technology, but using 5 or 10% of it, it's then not actually maximizing the benefits. And like I say, having those industry experts, people who can really help drive it within the industries, but then also really with that kind of ethical piece to it as well. It's yeah, ever changing at the moment as well, which is going to be interesting. Um, and looking into obviously, as we mentioned, you've progressed and held senior leadership roles across a number of different industries, and a big part of this is really looking to help bring in the next generation of leaders. And again, if we're looking into the clean tech engineering industries, they're now competing for skill sets which may go to a Microsoft or a Google or wherever it may be. So it's then attracting individuals into engineering, but especially young women, which maybe don't see it as a career option as much for them. So I guess what piece of advice would you give to individuals about this as an industry, and the kind of impact that they can have over the next 10, 20, 30 years as well?
First advice is to start early, because by the age of 10, many girls already stop envisioning themselves in scientific careers, even though they often outperform boys in school.
Yeah,
That's why I actively collaborate with organizations like Tech pour Toutes, uh, it's Tech for All, and Femmes at Numérique, which is Women at Numerics. It's crucial to show young girls that tech isn't something for the future. It's something they can embrace right now.
yeah.
So that's the message, in fact.
Would you say there's a responsibility, I guess, one for the industry to really show strong, female leaders, show the impact that they can have, but then also at schools, universities, well, like I say, at the early age, really then passing those messages down, showing that there is these career paths and opportunities available, and like I say, when it gets to 18, 19, sometimes the mindset's been changed away from it. So really, like I say, getting them early where it's anyone can achieve anything, but really getting those role models shown and highlighted and help inspire from that, very, very young age.
Yes, and we have to be very careful of this woman because it's very easy to change their minds. So my advice to young women aspiring to drive change in industry is you don't need anyone's permission to start.
Yeah,
Cultivate your voice, define your own standards, and reinvent industry for the better and make it together. And you have your place in this world. For me, it's the most important. And I could see richness you can give in the team where there are women, but not only women. When there are multicultural teams, when there are pluri sorry, multidisciplinary roles in the team, because you don't see things like each other's. And if there is only the boys club, sorry on the expression,
Yeah.
uh, richness is not at the same level.
I guess just one last question. Obviously, you've had a very strong career across, automotive, clean technology, engineering. What have you loved about the industry? What has it given to yourself personally, and being able to work across these different areas? And, I guess, what do you enjoy most about the work that you're doing?
um, I never done the same. So first thing is that I never done the same thing, and each day is different from the other. So it's it's very important for me, so I can nurture my curiosity. And the second thing is the the big value for yourself when you have a big team, very collaborative, who have a success. And you are responsible for, I am responsible for the team, but we did it together. And it's, for me, it's the top.
Well, look, I appreciate your time. I think we could probably speak for days on any of these topics, so we'll definitely have to do a follow up, and we can go into more detail in some of these. But look, thank you so much for addressing some of these complex topics, and hopefully this will give people the inspire them to look a bit deeper into them, and obviously look at that different areas where there could be options. But again, it's a real food for thought. So thank you very much for your time today, and definitely looking forward to
Thank
doing
you,
a
Simon.
follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. It's been a pleasure to share these reflections.